Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. And guys, happy Inauguration Day for all those of you who are my American friends. It's always every 4 years or every 8, depending on, whether you get a repeat president or not. It's a great time of renewal, hope for the future, all that types of good stuff. And I hope you guys are having a fabulous, wonderful, terrific day. It is good to be with you here today, guys. I'm flying solo here, but it's good to have you guys here with me. We don't have a lot of predetermined topics set up today. Really, I wanted to spend today, because we've been getting in an awful lot of live comments and questions you guys have been sending in. We have some catching up to do. I was going to do a companion video last night, but I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and I wasn't able to get around to doing that. But I'm glad you guys are joining me here today, and we do have a few things to talk about. First thing I want to talk about, though, is this. Let's just dive right into something. This just kind of came out this morning. One of the really cool things that have been, they've had some hits, they've had some misses. One of the cool things that has been around for the last few years has been the CW Arrowverse. Quite frankly, something I thought was a stupid idea when they first announced they were going to do this Green Arrow show. And then I kind of fell in love with it, at least for the first couple of seasons. And then I thought it was a dumb idea they were doing Flash. And then I loved Flash. And then I thought Black Lightning looked like a dumb idea. And then I loved Black Lightning, and so on and so forth. And they've had hits, they've had misses along the ways, whatever. Anyway, one of the big things that they introduced was, of course, Batwoman. They introduced the Batwoman show. And I went into that show with a lot of high hopes. I went into Batwoman with a lot of high hopes. But I got 3 or 4 episodes into it, and I was like, you know what? Not for me. This isn't working for me. It's not up there. And so I kind of dropped off of it. But still, nonetheless, it acquired a little bit of a following. It had a little bit of an audience, certainly enough to justify CW moving ahead and giving it a second season. Now, of course, the big drama that happened around Batwoman was the fact that they lost Ruby Rose, their lead actress, got rid of, whichever story you decide to believe. Whether she decided to leave or they decided to give her the boot, or whether it was mutual, it's never mutual. And whichever side you believe, perfectly fine. But then they did something that I thought was really, really strange. They made the decision to not recast the character. Instead, they decided that the main character of the show, the title character of the show, not only were they losing the lead actress, they were going to swap out the main character too and introduce a new main character to take on the name Batwoman. But it was a totally different character now. And that was interesting. And the reason I thought that was a bad idea, and you guys remember us talking about this on the show, the reason I thought it was a bad idea is because, well, number one, you've got a bunch of people who tried the show and didn't like it. They're not going to come back for a new lead character. But you do have some audience there, and you're going to lose a bunch of that audience because you lost the lead actress. And if you lose out the main character, if you get rid of the main character, you're going to lose out on more of your audience. I mean, it just didn't seem like a very bright move at the time, but it's what they decided to do. And as a result, Batwoman Season 2 is premiered with a brand new, not only new lead actress, which you had to have because somebody had to take over the leading role, but a completely brand new lead character. They swapped out the lead character, and to no surprise, it was an abysmal flop. Your season premieres are supposed to be, your big hit, like the season premiere hits big, and then, maybe your ratings drop a little bit through the season. The season premiere of Season 2 opened, and it was the 3rd lowest rated in the ratings that any Batwoman episode has had. So basically, people didn't want to come back. And it kind of gets worse. Listen to this here. But according to CBM, the Season 2 premiere of Batwoman was only watched, get this, by about 663,000 people, making it the 3rd least viewed episode of the superhero series. This may sound like a large number in isolation, but compared to the 1.8 million viewers who watched the Season 1 premiere, you've just dropped like 2/3 of your audience. These current ratings are abysmal. Only 2 episodes have performed worse in the show's history. If You Believe in Me, I'll Believe in You, with 640,000 viewers, and A Narrow Escape with 630,000 100,000 viewers. This is a complete and utter disaster. And listen, what else did you expect? What else did you expect? Now listen, full disclosure, I haven't seen the premiere episode of season 2. Like I said, I tapped out on Batwoman about 3 or 4 episodes in. So I haven't seen it. And I have no reason to believe that the new lead actress they got isn't fabulous. I'm sure she probably is great. But again, when you have a show that a lot of people tuned out of instantly, and then for those audience members you still have with you, you lose the lead actress and you lose the lead character that they loved. For those audience members that did like the show, now you've taken away the lead actress and you've taken away the character that they loved. And what do you think's going to happen? Do you think just magically out of nowhere, like people like me are going to go, oh, I think I'll give this show another shot? Well, maybe some people did. Maybe some people did. But you've got to start with maintaining your audience. And again, there was really nothing they could do about losing Ruby Rose. I mean, that was just a decision they felt they had to make. And so that's fine. But I said from the beginning, and I'll say it again, the decision to swap out the main character was an absolute mistake. I believe it was an absolute mistake. And am I saying here that if they didn't swap out the character, this show would have opened with 2 million viewers? No, I'm not saying that. But it would have opened to more than 660,000 viewers. You would have had more of your audience return, I think, than just 660,000. And I think it's safe to say at this point, there will not be a Batwoman season 3. And I'm not saying that's either a good or a bad thing. The show wasn't for me. I'm sure there are a bunch of you guys watching who were fans of the show or are fans of the show, and that's great. But this has got to be disappointing. Hey, I am curious, though, guys. If you are a fan of the show and you've been watching it, do jump into the comments section and let me know what you thought of it. Maybe you thought the episode was good. Maybe you thought it was an improvement over last season. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Jump on down into the comments section and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. I just got one more main thing I want us to talk about here today before we spend the rest of the afternoon taking live comments and questions. And that's this. You know, I often get asked a lot about, you guys know I get 100 to 200 emails a day sent into the email accounts. I get even more in the comment section and on my various social media, on Instagram and whatever. But you guys would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, how many people write in to me always and constantly asking about review scores, movie reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, how critic scores work and all that kind of stuff, objections to the way they're handled, some praise for the way they're handled, all that kind of stuff. And one of the questions I get quite often, especially whenever I do a review, whenever I do a movie review, like when I did Wonder Woman 84, I just recently reviewed Wonder Woman 84, obviously. And whenever I do, the question always comes back up. Why don't you give a score to your movie? To the movie reviews that you do. You know, I'll review Wonder Woman, or I'll review Trial of the Chicago 7, or I'll review some movie and I'll talk about the movie. I'll give my thoughts on it. And then I say, all right, guys, thanks for listening. See you later. And then a lot of people write in and say, well, wait a second. You didn't give it a score. Where's the score? And we've touched on this a little bit before about why I don't give scores, but we're going to revisit that. And I want to expand on it a bit here. Why don't you give it a score, John? Like, how am I supposed to know what you really thought of this movie if you don't give it something out of 10 or X number of stars or, whatever, an X number of popcorn bags, or, some critics try to get creative, and I admire that, try to get creative with how they do these things. How are we supposed to know what you really thought of it unless you give it a score? Well, I thought we would take a little bit of time here today, if you will indulge me, in a conversation about our movie fandom, about why I believe that there are elements of movie reviews that are very valuable, but there is an element of movie reviews that is completely useless, and that is a movie review score. I think a movie review score is completely useless. And I want to talk a little bit about how we juxtapose the idea of a movie review score against other dimensions of movie reviews that do have value and all that kind of stuff. And so let's get into it here for a second. Let's take a moment and jump into the Campea classroom for a minute, shall we? Let's jump on over there for a second. There are three dimensions of movie reviews, all right? There are three different angles, if you will, when it comes to the movie review. I mean, some may argue that there's more, but for our purposes today, we're going to talk about it in terms of three dimensions of reviews. The first part is the general review. And by the general review, what we basically mean is this. A reviewer gives and lays out their thoughts and opinions on a movie. All right. So a general review is basically, let's talk about Wonder Woman 84. And here's a short example of a general review. Hey guys, I watched Wonder Woman 84. I'm a big fan of the first Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot and directed by Patty Jenkins. Unfortunately for me, as you get into this one, they engaged in there were some script issues and story issues and narrative issues. There were certainly some highlights in it. At the end of the day, I found it disappointing and it just didn't work for me overall. I didn't think it was completely terrible, but overall, I got to say I was disappointed. You know, that's a very short version, but the general thought and discussion. So when you go to something like the Hollywood Reporter or one of your favorite television movie critics, whatever, and they talk about the movie. That to me is the general review. The general review is the overall thoughts and all that kind of stuff. All right. Then we get the other dimension is the review score. All right. And this is easy. 4 out of 5. 3 stars. 83%, whatever. It's the movie review score is generally something that comes after the general review, right? That is the standard kind of approach we normally see with movie reviews. The critic talks about the movie, gives their overall impressions of the movie, discusses it, breaks it down, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the end of that review, and that point, let's face it, what a lot of you guys do is you get to the Hollywood Reporter or Coming Soon or Joe Blow, whatever, and you get to the movie review and you just scroll right down to the bottom, right? You just instantly scroll down to the bottom and where's the score? That's all I care about. I just want to see the score, right? But that's the general layout. You get the general review, and then at the end of the general review, we get a score. So that's the second dimension of the score. Then there's a third dimension of the score that I call the review consensus, all right? A review consensus. So this is something like Rotten Tomatoes, this is something like Metacritic. This is something like IMDb and things like that, where you can go and at a quick glance, get a sense of what the general feeling is amongst a larger body of people, right? Because the general consensus is you're hearing the thoughts of one particular critic and what her or his thoughts are on that movie. The review score is then you're getting a summation, a numerical value being put on that individual's thoughts and opinions of a movie. But then you get the review consensus kind of stuff, which gives you an overall general feeling of what the overall sense from a wider group of people, a wider body demographic looks like. So there are three different things there. We've got the general review, the review score, and the review consensus. I think two of these things are very valuable. The general review, I think, is very valuable. And I think the review consensus is very valuable. But I think the review score is utterly and completely useless. The review score is utterly and completely useless. Hence why, when I do my reviews of movies, I do not give them scores. Let's talk about that why. All right, let's talk about the general review and why I believe there's value in that. The general review is the closest thing to an actual movie discussion, right? It's an actual discussion. It's sitting down to listen to another person giving their overall thoughts and why they think what they think about a movie. That's the foundation of movie discussion, and movie discussion is the foundation of movie fandom. So we really don't have to spend a lot of time talking about the general review because we all kind of get that. We get that. We're sitting down, listening to Roger Ebert, or we have in the past, listening to Roger Ebert, giving his overall thoughts and breaking down and listening to his analysis of the film, or talking to your buddy over lunch and hearing why your buddy didn't like Amazing Spider-Man 2 as your buddy lists out the reasons, the things that didn't work for them, and giving their analysis. There's a lot of value in that. That's great. That's fantastic. There's also, to me, a lot of value in review consensus. And I'm going to take out IMDb and Metacritic because for different reasons. But let's just talk about Rotten Tomatoes for a second and why I believe there's a lot of value in Rotten Tomatoes. It's amazing to me that a lot of people still don't get this, but this is important. Rotten Tomatoes does not give scores. All right? It's still amazing to me how many film fans don't actually understand this. Rotten Tomatoes does not give scores. You would be shocked to see how many people still think that Rotten Tomatoes is just like a reviewer, that Rotten Tomatoes itself is a reviewer, and that Rotten Tomatoes watches a movie and then they bequeath a score to that movie. Oh, we at Rotten Tomatoes watched Avengers Endgame. Just out of curiosity, what is Avengers? Hold on a second. Avengers Endgame, Rotten Tomatoes. What's the Rotten Tomatoes rating on that? Okay, Rotten Tomatoes rating of Avengers Endgame is 94%. 94%. There are still a lot of people who have this impression that Rotten Tomatoes just goes, yes, we at Rotten Tomatoes watched Endgame, and we have decided to give Endgame a 94% rating. There you go. Go in peace, my child. I have blessed you with my rating. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. What Rotten Tomatoes does is, and now you'll see this here, total count from their critics, 532. So what that basically means, and some of you know this, but believe me, there are still a lot of people that don't understand this. So bear with us here for a second. What that basically says is Rotten Tomatoes basically goes out and they get the ratings, the reviews from, in this case, 532 various film critics of radio, television, interweb, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, YouTube, whatever. They went out and so they've taken in the reviews of 532 critics. And they're just telling you that out of all 532, 94% of them liked it. That's what they're saying. They're saying 6% of that 532 didn't like it. How much they didn't like it isn't relevant. And that 94% of the critics liked it. How much they liked it is irrelevant. That's not what Rotten Tomatoes is trying to establish here. They're just saying that 94% enjoyed it. Now, this is key, and this is why this is important to me. There is a perception out there of film critics that they're like the Borg, that the film critics are a collective, right? They all think the same. But when you understand that film critics, especially out of those 532, are as widely diverse as anybody. I know film critics who are Hispanic guys, white businessmen kind of guys, long-haired skid kind of guys. No offense, buddy. You know who I'm talking to. You have, black girls or whatever. It is a wide. You have film critics on there who are fans of classical music and fans of, I don't know, Skid Row. I said Skid earlier. I said fans of Skid Row. Doesn't matter. They are a widely diverse group of people. And the reason that number to me is significant and has value is that it tells me, okay, look, these are people out of this really wide, diverse group of people. They kind of got together and agreed. 94% of them agreed that we like this. That means the long-haired metalhead film critic liked it. That means the suit-wearing, maybe newspaper-writing critic liked it. That means, the dude who does a YouTube channel in his spare bedroom liked it. That means, a girl who has set up an office and is a pro film critic, she liked it. It just gives us a general sense of what the overall consensus was, and it gives us a bit of an idea about how we may ourselves actually think about it when we see it. Doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives us a general sense about what the overall consensus is. So that's why I think the general discussion part of a review is very valuable, and that's why I think review consensus is valuable. I think review consensus is really valuable. Now, let's get to the part that we all associate with when we think of movie reviews, right? When we think of movie reviews, we think of 2 stars out of 5, 9 out of 10, whatever. And that's the part that we are most familiar with. And that's the part to me that is absolutely the most useless. And here's why it's the most useless. The reason critic scores are most useless is mostly because when we hear these things, like for instance, when we hear 90%, when we see 4 stars, when we see 7 out of 10, when we see all these types of things, it means different things to each of us. I came across this image. This is a great example. Follow me here. This is a great example because this happens with me and my wife every day. Me and Ann, every day this happens. Let's say you and your wife, like your wife gets out of the shower, your girlfriend gets out of the shower, your boyfriend gets out of the shower, whatever. And you ask them, oh, how's the water right now? Because they got the shower running. And they might say, oh, it's hot. Or they might say, oh, it's warm. Here's what happens to me every day. So when I came across this picture, it spoke to my soul. My wife usually gets in the shower before I do, right? And maybe I'll get in with her. Maybe I'll get in after she's done, whatever. And I'll say, okay, how do you got the water right now? She goes, oh, it's warm, not hot. I says, not hot. No, it's warm, right? But then I step into the shower and I feel like my skin is going to melt off. I feel like I'm being punished. I feel like, Arnold Schwarzenegger at the end of Terminator 2 being lowered into the melted molten steel vat. I feel like every nerve ending on my body is firing from the pure, unrelenting, intolerable heat of the water. But to Anne, it's just nice and warm. That's it. It's just nice and warm. This is what movie review scores are. This right here is an image of what movie review scores are. And here's why. You've heard me tell this part of the story before, but it's true. Like to me, when I used to give movie review scores, like 6 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever, right? To me, a 7 out of 10, for example, is a solid score. That's solid. So when I would watch a movie and I think, this isn't, one of the great movies of the year, but this is a really good movie that I quite enjoyed. It's not going to be an Academy Award nominee, had some issues, sure, but overall, really solid film, 7 out of 10. To me, that's giving it high praise, right? Well, what would inevitably happen, and you guys who have watched or followed me since the movie blog days, this is what's inevitably going to happen. I give a movie a 7 out of 10. That's me kind of saying, good job, movie. Well done. You did a good job. Good, solid movie. I enjoyed that. But what happens? Somebody else sees that I gave it a 7 out of 10, and inevitably I get flooded with messages with, why did you hate it? Why did you hate that movie, John? I really like that movie. Why did you hate it? And because here's the thing. And we talk about this, quite a bit. We talk about the fact that in our society today, we live in a 10 or 0 culture, right? We live in a 10 or 0 culture. Everything is 10, 10, 10, 10, or it's 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Everything is 10s or zeros to everybody. Which makes no sense. But that's what it is for a lot of people. Everything's 10s or zeros. And the moment you give something anything less than a 10, they're like, oh my God, why did you hate it? What's wrong? Some movie critic gives something like a 3 out of 4 stars, and they're like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about this movie. What, you didn't like it? No, I love that movie, but you only gave it a 3 out of 4. You don't know what you're talking about. You hate it. And it just becomes infuriating. And so here's the thing. When you have people that don't share an understanding, a common understanding of what a score means, then what's the use of giving it a score? My wife and I do not have a common understanding of what warm means in the shower. She has a very different definition of what warm means when it comes to the temperature of the water in the shower. Because what she defines as warm, I define as having a boiling pot of water poured over my head, right? They're two completely different understandings. And so if you have 3 different people and all 3 of them have a different interpretation of what 7 out of 10 means, then what value is there in saying 7 out of 10? What value is there in that? I would propose there's not much value in it. Maybe none, maybe no value in it. And that's why, to me, when we talk about the 3 dimension of movie reviews, there are 2 that have great value. 1, the general review, the discussion, the breaking down, the analysis. That's fun. That's engaging. That's movie fandom. The second is the consensus, just a general idea of, out of all the people who watched it, how many people liked it? That's it, just consensus. I'm not looking for individual scores, just what is the percentage of people who watch this movie and would at least say they liked it? I think there's great value in that, because I'll tell you what, if I'm thinking about buying a car and I see that 82% of the people who bought that car before would not recommend it, then I'd be a fool to go and buy that car. Maybe not a fool. Maybe there's something special about the car that appeals to me, but I got to know if 82% of the people who have used this car don't like this car, maybe I'm still interested in buying it, but at least now I'm a little bit prepared. And it's like, okay, well, a lot of people didn't like the car, so maybe I still want it and maybe I'll like it, but I should be prepared that there are probably going to be some issues with it, right? And I've always said this, when we go to see a movie, seeing a movie is an investment of time and money. Time is our most valuable resource. And when you choose to watch a movie, you are making a choice to invest some of your limited time and, to some degree, some of your limited money. And so that's why, for me as a film fan, I've always wanted to look up reviews, just like I look up reviews for, whatever phone I'm going to buy, when I look up reviews for what mics I'm going to buy, when I look up reviews for the car I'm going to buy, when I look up food reviews for a restaurant Ann and I are thinking about going to, because we are investing some of our time and money. I want to be an informed consumer, so I at least want to get an idea of what I'm getting into. But the specific idea of movie scores, of a particular reviewer saying, I give this an 8 out of 10, it really becomes pointless and meaningless, because what means 8 out of 10 to that reviewer may mean something completely different for you as a reader. It may mean something completely different to me. Some critic could give something an 8 out of 10, and that's their way of saying, this movie was awful. Okay? To me, 8 out of 10 means it was pretty fantastic. So there's that. Anyway, so in all the times that we always talk about the movies and reviews and stuff like that, that's why I stopped a number of years ago giving scores to movie reviews. And when I do movie reviews now, I just talk about the movie and I give you a sense. Did I like it? Did I love it? Do I think it's one of the best things ever? Was I disappointed in it? Did I think it was a car wreck? I just give you my overall thoughts and no score. So that's kind of my take on that. Question is for you guys. How do you approach reviews? Do you have a couple of reviewers that you really enjoy getting into their specific analysis of a movie? Are you the type of person, like a lot of people are, where you just kind of get to a movie review and you scroll to the bottom to see what the score is? A lot of people in the general audience just like going to Rotten Tomatoes to just get that consensus. What in general do people feel about this movie overall? I mean, which one are you? Maybe you're something completely different. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now take over here and let's let you guys take over, and we'll just go over and spend the rest of today's show taking your live comments and questions. If you want to send in a live comment or question, it's really simple. Just go into the description of this video and you'll see a tip link. All you got to do is click on that tip link, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here involved with the John Campea YouTube show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. All right. I'm not quite sure this is going to work. Something's gone a little weird with the thing right now, but let's go see. Let's see if we can get over and start getting to your live questions. Is this going to come up? It's not coming up. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get this. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, I am not being able to get this to work. All right. This is unfortunate. Why is this not coming through? Something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong, and I can't seem to get the questions to come up on screen. All right, guys, if you will give me a minute, I'm going to see if I can fix this. Something kind of went wacky in the technical aspect of it. Give me a moment. I'll be right back. Let me see if I can fix this up. Hold on one second. Okay, guys, and I think we've got it fixed. I think we got it fixed. Sorry, guys, we suddenly had a gremlin get into the system here and start working kind of weird. Let's see if this actually worked. And look at that. It actually worked. Okay. Let's see here. Where do we got to get started from? Because I lost my place. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry for the hiccup. I will get things caught up here. Let's see where we left off. Oh boy, I got to back up quite a bit here. Let me see. Almost there. Almost there. Okay, here we go. Now we're all set. And we're going to get things started here with Jaron Morris, who writes, Tom Brady had an amazing performance in his last game. Well, he had a good performance. I wouldn't say he had an amazing performance, but I thought he had a good performance. But with that being said, Max Holloway's performance was on a whole new level, and he shattered records and significant strikes. It's the blessed era. # blessed era. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, we talked about Max Holloway's performance. He's a UFC fighter on the recent UFC event, and it was staggering. It was absolutely staggering. Like, shockingly good. It's unbelievable. I said this before. There have been better fights, but as an individual performance in a fight, I don't know that I've ever seen the equal to Max Holloway's performance in that last UFC that we just had on ABC. It might have been the single best performance I've ever seen, particularly in terms of striking. That dude was an absolute beast that night. All right, next up, Benjamin Mason writes, Hey, John, with all the talk about Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield coming back to Spider-Man 3, do you think it will hurt the movie at all? We don't see them in it. I know I'll be hurt, just kidding. Well, when Chris West sends in a super chat badge in the live chat stream. Thanks so much for that, Chris. Appreciate that. I don't know. So, like, there's all these talks and rumors. By the way, nothing's been confirmed yet. I mean, I believe we're going to see Toby and Andrew in the movie, probably in a very, very small role, but I do believe we're going to see them. But we got to understand it's not been confirmed. It has not been confirmed. Let's be really, really clear about that. But with all the talk of them being in it, if it turns out they're not in it, is that going to turn people off the movie? I think there will be some people, and that's part of the problem with getting all these expectations and fan theories and all this kind of stuff, is that if your fan theory or the thing you were thinking was going to happen doesn't happen, well, then we walk away disappointed, even if the movie itself is great. So yeah, I think probably you'll get some people that will be disappointed, but I hope not many. And again, it just kind of points to the danger of getting those expectations before things start. But we'll see like I said, I think they will, but let's not count on it until we get like an actual official word. And I think the official word will come. I think it'll come, but we got to understand it has not been given yet. Okay, so there's that. All right, next up, Drew L. Ray writes, Hey, John, I love you guys. Thank you so much. And I hope you have an awesome, healthy day. All the Tom Holland talk made me rewatch Devil All the Time yesterday. I love it even more the second time around. However, I see how the dark tone can be overbearing for many. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I didn't love Devil All the Time. Dark tone wasn't a problem for me. Like, some of my favorite movies have some really, really dark tones to them. It wasn't that. It's just, it didn't flow for me nearly as well. And some of the characters were a little one-dimensional for me. But anyway, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I'm making it sound like I didn't like it. And I did. I liked it. What is truly impressive in it, though, are a number of the performances. Highlighted by Robert Pattinson and, of course, Tom Holland. Tom Holland's performance in that was great. It was his kind of calling card to everybody. I'm not just Spider-Man, everybody. I ain't just Spider-Man. And that was really good to see it. And yeah, his performance in it is absolutely fantastic. And I got some smart asses in the live chat saying, "What score did you give it, John?" I see what you did there, jackasses. All right, next up, Drew L. Ray also writes, also 100% I agree with you on Cherry. The trailer was but the movie looks like it's going to be fantastic. Keep up the great work. Yeah, it's that Cherry trailer is a very odd trailer to me because that's the new Tom Holland film that he has coming out. The trailer just dropped the other day. I didn't think the trailer was great. And yet I could tell from the trailer that the movie's going to be awesome. That almost sounds contradictory. And I'm not quite sure how to explain it myself, but it's the weirdest feeling. I watched the trailer. I didn't like the trailer. I mean, I didn't dislike the trailer, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think the trailer was great. But you could tell by watching it, this movie's going to be awesome. It's hardly ever do I feel that way about something. It's a really weird thing. I can't wait to watch the movie. Thanks for writing that in, Drew. Next up, Nosferatu writes, Deadpool, referring to Doctor Strange. Easy there, Sherlock. That would be funny. Easy there, Sherlock. Captain America, Wilson, that's enough. Deadpool, flame on Johnny. I mean, there's a lot you could do. There's so many different ways that if he does indeed get into the MCU, that we could see Deadpool in a lot of fun ways breaking the fourth wall. I mean, he jabbed at Marvel stuff a lot in Deadpool 2. I think he would go absolutely savage on it now that he's actually in Disney and in the MCU. I think that would be pretty fun. All right, next up, Big Fan writes, Hey, John, let's be honest. Do these questions annoy you? I mean, some of these questions are a bit repetitive or annoying. Do you find enjoyment in doing this? Big fan. Dude, I can talk movies all day. I can talk movies all day. Now, listen, there's a difference between like every once in a while when somebody wants to write in something obviously really, really purposefully stupid and purposefully annoying. That's different. But you can sit down with me anytime and say, John, what did you think about Star Wars? How many times do you think I've been asked in my lifetime what I think about Star Wars? I don't derive one less ounce of joy and happiness talking about it. And it doesn't matter if I've talked about it a billion times. I just love talking about it. How many times do you think, sportscasters have been asked about, hey, what did you think about, the Patriots comeback against the Falcons, the 25-point comeback in the Super Bowl? The football players, they probably get asked about it all the time. And unless they were an Atlanta Falcon, they probably love talking about it because it was a great moment. It's a historic moment. And for me, I know. And listen, I always am cognizant of this. Yes, a lot of times questions get sent in that have been asked before, and you'll hear me start saying, we've been asked that a few times, but you've got to remember, and I've got to remember, that I do a 2+ hour show every day. And then on a lot of those days, especially recently, I do another 2 to 3 hour video of a companion video. So I literally, in a given week, I could do anywhere between 11 to 20 hours of show in a single week. Not everybody watches all of those. So yes, maybe somebody already wrote in and said, well, John, Wonder Woman was touching everybody with her golden lasso of truth. Yeah, I've had people write that in 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times. And that's totally cool because they're not all watching every single minute of the John Campea Show. And by the way, it's also good because as we talk even about, if we want to talk about that one specific thing about the golden lasso was touching all the people, even if we want to talk about that, right? As time passes, we have new thoughts about it. Maybe we think about something that we hadn't thought of before. And so it's always fun to revisit the issue. So for me personally, big fan, no, it doesn't bother me at all. I just love talking movies. Even if it's topics we've already covered, because not everybody was here before, or maybe we have slightly different perspectives now than we did the last time we talked about it. So yeah, to me, it's all good, man. I can talk about it all day. Anyway, thanks for that, man. Okay, next up, A-Train A writes, you keep saying that all the comic book movies of the year sucked, but I really think you have to stress that it's your opinion. While Birds of Prey wasn't good to me either, it's the 3rd highest rated DCU film. Quality-wise, it's not a stumble for DC. People liked it. Well, no, listen, here's the thing, A-Train. Everybody knows that everybody who watches at least my show knows that to me, the ultimate foundational truth about being a film fan is this: all film is subjective. If you don't properly grasp and understand that, then I don't think you properly understand what it is to be a film fan. I hate putting things in absolutes like that, but I mean, really, I think if you don't have a grasp of that one foundational truth of what film fandom is, that film is subjective, everybody knows that's my perspective. And knowing that that's my perspective, I don't think it's incumbent upon me that every single time I give an opinion about a movie that I have to stop and say, now before, ladies and gentlemen, John Campea gives his opinion of this particular movie, he'd like to preface this by saying that all film is subjective and any thoughts he expresses on the quality of the film is simply his opinion. I don't think I need to say that before every time I give an opinion on a movie, because everybody who watches me understands that my foundational truth of movie fandom is that every film is subjective. And just because I don't like a movie doesn't mean other people don't like it. Or just because I do like a movie, like when I say, man, 40-Year-Old Virgin is great, like just best comedy of all time, right? Well, obviously I know 40-Year-Old Virgin is the best comedy of all time to everybody else. I know that, but I just don't think, listen, on a 2-hour show where I have to give my opinion on movies for 2 hours, I don't think I have to preface every statement I make about my movie opinions by stressing every single time. Now, this is only the opinion of John Campea. It does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of all the other people watching around the world. Everybody knows it goes without saying. And yes, to me, all the comic book movies that hit theaters this year were terrible. I mean, some less terrible than others. But when I say Birds of Prey was terrible, my audience knows that all film is subjective, and I understand that, and I value that above everything else. And they know that when I say Birds of Prey is terrible, that's not me saying everybody hates it, nor is it me saying that everybody has to hate it, right? It's understood. We don't have to give the disclaimer every single time I give an opinion. Because, of course, you're absolutely right. The foundational truth is subjective, and everybody will have different opinions about it. But on my show, I am here to give my opinion. When people ask me a question, they're asking me for my opinion, and they know that whatever opinion I give is just my opinion. And so I don't think we have to repeat that every single time. That's just my thought, A-Train. All right, next up. Jose Hernandez writes, I had the chance to meet Timothée Chalamet at the red carpet for The King of New York. Nice. And I agree, he is a great actor of his generation. Dude, listen, I'll tell you what. I honestly think Timothée Chalamet, he's the guy. I think Timothée Chalamet he's not the best actor in the world right now. I think he is destined to become the best actor in the world. I think this, again, when you go and watch, like, Call Me By Your Name, and you watch, the one he did with Steve Carell, where he played Steve Carell's son. I'm freezing on the name of that. If you guys in the live chat remember the name of that one, throw it in. But he was incredible in that. He was absolutely incredible in that. Beautiful boy. Thank you, Quirky Joe. Beautiful boy. This dude has talent. He has so much. If acting talent was a mutant power, he has got more inert talent. He's got more natural raw power in him than I've ever seen in an actor his age. Now he's getting older. I think he's 24, 25 years old right now. But it's scary to me to think about how good he will be in 5 years and then in 10 years. Now, I don't know, maybe his development stops. Maybe he stops getting better. Maybe, but like right now, he is like the actor on the planet that I most have my eye on. Like this dude, he's got so much raw natural talent, and he's only getting better every single time. He's, I think, going to be, I think he has the potential to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. Not that he will, but I think out of anybody I've seen, he's the first person I've really come across in the last 15, 20 years that I've looked at and said, this guy has the potential to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. So we'll see where that kind of goes. All right. Next up, John's honey foot massage. That's, of course, a reference to something I said on a previous show. Oh, wait a second. Did we have a bit of a jump here? Oh, we did. We had a jump. Sorry. Give me a second. Let me get back on track here. Sorry, guys. This happens with the stream elements sometimes. Sometimes this happens. I will get us back on track. Give me a moment. Sergeant Warren, Anonymous, Hayden. Again, sorry about this, guys. Okay, there was Big Fan. Okay, that was a thing. Then that was the Birds of Prey. Then I had a chance to watch Timothy. All right, now ZMG Ruler writes, in 2016, I took my father to see both Batman vs. Superman and Captain America Civil War. He had seen Man of Steel and only one MCU film, The Avengers, at that point, and he liked Batman vs. Superman more than Captain America Civil War because he thought there were too many characters in Civil War. Do you know anyone that go against popular opinions? Well, no, here's the thing. Everybody goes against popular opinion. Everybody does. Every single person goes against popular opinion at some point. Every single one of you watching this video right now has a movie that you really like that most people don't. At least a couple. Everybody watching this video right now has a movie that they really don't like that everybody else seems to love. We all have that. That's the beauty of the subjectivity of film. Like me, I'm always calling myself out on this. I mean, look, Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, one of the most celebrated films in sci-fi movie history. I don't like it. I don't actually find it enjoyable at all. But everybody else does, and it's an all-time classic, but it just didn't work for me. The original Halloween. Yeah, I didn't like the original Halloween. I went back and watched it again about 10 years ago. I'm like, wow, this does not hold up. But again, it is an all-time classic. But here's the thing. And, you know, for me, Armageddon is awesome. I think Armageddon is tons of fun, but a lot of people hate it. But that's the thing. We all have that. We all have that. We all have different opinions about different things. Just because you liked A, B, and C doesn't mean you're going to like E or vice versa, right? So it is all of us. All of us. Sometimes, maybe a lot of the times, we are in agreement with the consensus. Sometimes we're one of the ones in the minority. And that's the beauty about being a film fan, my friend. All right, next up. Wakandan Forever writes, "Hey, John. When I wrote in about getting Brightburn vibes, I remember that, when watching WandaVision, I meant how they took a story we all know, but put in unexpected moments with a sinister vibe throughout. An evil Smallville or creepy Leave It to Beaver. Hope that helps." That makes, because I remember you wrote that in and say, you know, I was watching Smallville and I got Brightburn vibes. I'm like, wait, what? Brightburn vibes? What? You know, I was kind of like, what? Now that you explain it like that, that makes a little bit more sense. Now I kind of see what you're saying there. And yes, it does have that. Man, Brightburn was a movie I wanted to love. That really cool idea about, let's take the Superman story, but what happens if that baby that lands on Earth turns out to be rotten? What then? And that was the concept behind Brightburn, and I really wanted to love it, partially because it was produced by James Gunn, and you guys know I love James Gunn. But yeah, it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. But yeah, that now that you explain it that way, Wakanda, now I understand what you were going for there. Okay, next up. I'm glad now everybody choose a side. I'm glad now that the lines are drawn. Godzilla versus King Kong. Climbing the Empire State Building was cute and all, but Godzilla is the king of the monsters. I give it 30 seconds. Barbecue kebabs, anyone? Have a good one. Hey, I'm Team Kong. I'm Team Kong. Yes. Godzilla's got his nuclear fire, and it's adorable. But you know what? Kong, he's got that ground and pound game. I think he's going to shoot in for a single leg on Godzilla. He's going to take him down. And once he's down, Godzilla's going to have no answer. He's going to flail around. He's not used to fighting off his back, Godzilla, you see. He's going to flail around. He's going to get desperate. He's going to give up his back. Kong's going to get back there, sink in the rear naked choke. Godzilla's eyes are going to roll back into the back of his head, and he'll be out. And Godzilla will stand as the triumphant, true king of Skull Island and true king of the monsters. It's going to be a Kong of a day, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a Kong of a day. You know what? I did not like Godzilla King of the Monsters. And so it's been difficult for me to get excited about Godzilla versus Kong. But I don't know why, I'm finding in recent days, maybe it was the news that it's been moved up a couple of months and now it's coming out in March. I'm finding myself getting a little bit more hyped for it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how excited I'm going to be for it by the time it comes out. Okay, next up. Matthias from Sweden writes, "Hey, John. I'm watching the MCU again, which got me thinking. The, as of yet, non-returning confirmed directors are Leterrier, Brana, Johnston, Black, Taylor and Bowden, Fleck. Over under 35%, any one of them return. Which would you most like to see return? Well, for me, obvious is Branagh. Kenneth Branagh. I love Kenneth Branagh. I think he's a fabulous director. And I thought his Thor movie, Kenneth Branagh, of course, directed the first Thor movie. And to me, Thor, the first one, is the second most underrated comic book film of all time. Only behind Man of Steel. Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book film of all time. But I believe Thor, directed by the great Kenneth Branagh, is the second most. And it was great, by the way. You know how Infinity War begins with, Thor's ship having been attacked by Thanos, right? The voice you hear as the movie begins, you hear the distress signal from Thanos' ship. We've come under attack. All you do is hear that voice, that distress signal voice from Thanos' ship. That's Kenneth Branagh. They got Kenneth Branagh to come in and record that line, which I thought was really cool. But anyway, yeah, to me, very much Kenneth Branagh. And listen, with the way that the MCU is expanding now, with the great expansion that the MCU is going through right now, in terms of being on Disney Plus, and they have more movies going into production, and they got X-Men coming in, and Fantastic Four, and Deadpool, I think that increases the chances that they'll want to return to some of those directors. They're going to need a lot of directors. Kevin Feige loves discovering new directors to bring into the fold. He loves going back to the ones he trusts. I believe there's a decent shot. I wouldn't put money on it, but I do believe there's a decent shot we see Kenneth Branagh back again. Anyway, okay, next up. Hayden Burke writes, I know that when shows grow, creators feel the need to upgrade the production and overall scale of the show to reach that next height. However, the John Campea Show thrives when it's personal, when you're looking down the barrel of the camera at us. Having watched you mostly every day for 9 years, I can say that the show loses a bit of magic for me. When you're in a bigger studio setting, things feel more formal. This iteration of the show works best for me, feels like you're one of us. Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. I do like a bigger studio. I'll tell you what, a couple years ago when I was, partnering with the Stream and we were doing the John Campea Show from the Stream studios, I'm not going to lie to you. I loved that setup. I thought the setup was great. I really did enjoy it. And I love being able to have Rob there at a desk with me. See, my studio, and Leandro sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Leandro. I appreciate that, man. A lot of people say, sometimes like when Ann and I do a review, like a spoiler review of Mandalorian or WandaVision, and people say, why don't you sit beside her? Well, one of the reasons I don't sit beside her, it's hard for you to tell from this, but I've got this massive desk set up in front of me with 4 big monitors here, and there's just no room to sit beside me. There literally isn't. I've got surfaces here and here on each side of me. It's very difficult. It's a relatively small room I'm in that I try to make a lot out of. I try to make the best use that I can out of it. But being in a studio like that where I can actually have, I would have Rob sitting beside me, or Aaron Cummings would be sitting beside me. I did kind of like that. But both have their pros and cons. And I agree. The home setup does feel a little bit more intimate. And that is a pro. The larger set gives me some other advantages, which is also good. At the end of the day, it's about making good content. And some days I do that really well, and sometimes I don't do it as well. But I think both formats have their pros and cons. But thanks for throwing that in, man. I really appreciate that, Hayden. Thanks a lot, dude. All right, next up. Hayden also writes, separate message. It's incredible in my time watching you, just how much your ideology has rubbed off on me. When I started watching, I was a high schooler. I'm now 24, have a master's degree. Good on you, man. Run a small business, and I'm losing my hair. To the point, when I started watching, we were all dying to see episode 7. Now that the trilogy is over, would you have still been as excited for the trilogy after seeing what we got? I, for one, would have pumped the hype brakes. Lesson learned. Well, it's hard to say because, you got to understand that I loved episode 7. Like, I loved The Force Awakens. And, every time I watch, I remember me and John Schnepp, I've told this story before, me and John Schnepp, like, a lot of times we'd be at the Collider offices and it's like, well, lunchtime, what should we do? Let's run across, because our offices was like literally right across the street from the AMC Burbank 16. And we'd say, Let's go see, and we had our AMC cards. Let's go see Force Awakens again. And so we would run across the street and go watch Force Awakens. We did that a number of times. And every time I would see The Force Awakens, I liked it more and more and more and more. And I love that movie. Obviously, the franchise was not able to continue that momentum. I liked The Last Jedi. There are things about it I really didn't like, but overall, I liked The Last Jedi. And then I really don't like The Rise of Skywalker. Like, I really don't like that film. And I did an entire half-hour video on laying out all the reasons why I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. But I still would have been as hyped for that first movie. I still would have been as hyped. Even though I know that it would go kind of downhill after that. And by the way, after that, we got other great movies. We got Rogue One, which I think most of us think is pretty great. I still think Solo, A Star Wars Story, is a wonderful space adventure film. I really like that movie. And then, we had some others. But yes, I think I still would have been as hyped. All right, next up. Anonymous viewer writes in. And tips in $20. Thank you, Anonymous. Again, and let me take this opportunity for this one more time, guys. When you guys do send in a tip question, do me a favor. Since you guys are supporting the channel when you do it, and you're giving us a fun topic to talk about, I want to make sure you get a shout out. So when you go to, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip, don't forget to fill out that top line that says your name, right? A lot of people just jump right down to the tip and writing in the question, and that's great, but I want to make sure your name gets a shout out. So please make sure, unless you want to remain anonymous, please try to make sure to fill out that your name part. Because I'm so grateful that you guys are here contributing to the show and giving us great topics. I just want to make sure you get a shout out. That's all. That's just me. So anyway, and our anonymous viewer writes in, "Hello, John. I've been listening since before the Schnepp days." That's going back a ways, before the Schnepp days. Bless his soul. My question, is it true that Kevin Feige is considering Charlie Hunnam as Wolverine, or is it just rumors? It's just rumors. Now listen, I'm sure Kevin Feige is going to consider a lot of people, but listen to this. They haven't started doing anything with an X-Men film yet. Nothing. He's not going to cast a Wolverine until they have a script. They're going to need to have a script so then they can look at it and get a sense of the Wolverine, and then they'll worry about casting. Charlie Hunnam, who, by the way, is in one of my top 3 all-time favorite shows, Sons of Anarchy. He's the main star of one of my all-time favorite shows. He was also really great in The Gentleman, my second favorite movie of 2020. I think he could be a great choice, depending on the Wolverine that they write. So no, at this point, any rumors about who's being cast for what for a movie they haven't even started really working anything on, I would just take that. Again, that's not saying that we will never see Charlie Hunnam as Wolverine. I mean, that could happen in as much as any actor could, but right now, total BS. For now, it's total BS. So, although I'd be for it, I think he's a good actor, so I'd be for it if it happened. But for now, just write it off as total BS. All right, next up. Sergeant Ward writes, "Hey, John, do you think that the Warner Brothers will give up the HBO Max deal by 2022? I mean, I know they really want it to work out, but with the legal battles, they almost had the controversy that they almost had, the battles they almost had, and the controversy it got from Hollywood. I think they would avoid it." Well, it's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. And I'm assuming you mean by the HBO Max deal, you mean like taking every single movie and putting it straight to HBO Max. It's too early to tell. They are certainly not reaping the benefits that they thought they were going to reap. Like, they came out and put on a brave face about the results they got from Wonder Woman 84, but the reality is they were not thrilled with the results they got from Wonder Woman 84. They were not thrilled with that. Like, in the least. And so it really depends. Does that start to get turned around? Is that something that they're able to fix moving forward? Maybe, maybe not. Do they start to see, once you get into, Kong versus Godzilla, does that bring in 5 million new subscribers? I mean, it's hard to tell right now. Right now, they're saying that they're only doing this for 2021 and that they're not planning on doing it in 2022. But listen, if they, get 2.5 times more subscribers in 2021, they may reevaluate that and stick with it. But for now, they're saying it's only for 2021. We'll have to wait and see. Again, we're only in January. I think we'll have a clearer picture about what they may or may not do by the time we get to July or August. But for now, they're saying they're going to go back to business as usual in 2022. Whether that's true or not, we will find out. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Sergeant. Next up, Dr. Film writes, "Hey, John, do you think when the pandemic is over and theaters open up again, studios will re-release movies for the box office or just gift for the fans who missed the movies? I think it's a good idea. What do you think?" Nope, won't work. It's already been established many times that once a movie gets out on home video in whatever format that is, there's really no point in putting it in theaters. I mean, there used to be a day a few years ago, not terribly long ago, there used to be a day that re-releasing a film in theaters could be kind of lucrative. But in the last 5+ years, it really has proved not to be the case. So for theaters to take up their movie space, when the movie theaters are open again, the movie theaters are going to want to fill their theaters with new movies. They're not going to want to take up their screens with a movie that already came out on home video 7 months ago. Because people just don't go. I mean, some do. Obviously, this is hyperbole. But generally speaking, people don't rush out to go watch things on the screen that are already out on home video. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that's kind of been the statistic. So, yeah. So I don't think so. All right. Next up, SpeedNet writes, "Hey, John, it seems like your streaming issue may be computer or OS related. It's not, and I'll explain why. Rather than your internet speed, especially after seeing that you needed a reboot a few episodes back, could your router 2 give it a reboot?" No, Speed, I can tell you no. And listen, I know this tech stuff inside out. It was none of that. And I'll tell you what has happened. So you guys know I've been having issues lately. YouTube fessed up and they thought it was a problem on their end, that they had a known issue and they thought they fixed it, but then I was still having the issue. So then then YouTube started saying, you know what, maybe it is an issue with your IP, the way certain gate numbers and whatever. Maybe it is an issue with your IP and your internet service provider, ISP. And so I brought in techs. We had techs come in. I have rebooted the modem. I have rebooted the router. We have done, when the problems happen, we've run tests on the computer, on wireless devices, on other computers that I have a laptop set up here. We have tested on everything, and no. So we have ruled out that the issue is that. I am now convinced that it is a Spectrum issue. And can I bellyache and complain about something here for a second? Do you mind if I bitch about something for a moment? Give me a moment to bitch about something here. This country, and I think it's the same in Canada, we celebrate, we talk about how companies shouldn't have monopolies, right? But in North America, there is a monopoly on the internet service provider you can use. Because it's like crime lords. Internet service providers are like crime lords. They divide up their territory, right? Where I live, the only option I have no consumer choice. The only option I have for where I live, if I want high-speed internet, the only option I have is Spectrum. And depending on where the neighborhood you live is, you probably only have one choice as well. Where the hell is the consumer choice? Because I'm in a position that if my ISP, Spectrum, starts shitting the bed like they've been doing on me for the last week or so, I have no other options. Now, everything else, as a consumer, you know what? You don't like that product? Screw the makers of that product. I'm going to go with a different product. But when it comes to an essential service like our internet, we don't have any options. Now, look, I'll say this. When my Spectrum home internet is working, it's beautiful. I get 1 gigabyte down. I get 35 to 40 megabits up. beautiful. And when it's working, it's beautiful. And admittedly, most of the time it works perfectly. But yeah, you guys have seen the last couple of weeks, I've had to end shows early because all of a sudden my 35, 40 megabit upload drops to 1 or 2 megabit upload. And you just can't stream a show like that. But I have no choice. And here's the kicker. You know, Ann and I are moving next week. We move in 9 days. 9 days, Ann and I move into our new house, an hour away. And guess who the internet service provider is in my new neighborhood? You guessed it, Spectrum. So I still have to use Spectrum. Now, the one thing that I have made a change to is I talked to the reps at Spectrum and I said, if I get your business class internet, will that be different? And they say, yes. Because now I didn't fully understand everything that they were talking about. But they basically say, look, when you're residential internet, you're basically sharing a larger pool with a lot of other people that live around you. When you have business class internet, it's more dedicated. So I'm hoping that once I get moved into the new place, I know we're not talking about movies. Let me bitch for a minute. Let me bitch. I've been sitting on this for freaking almost 2 weeks and it bothers the hell out of me that we have no consumer choice when it comes to our high-speed internet. And it bothers the hell out of me. And now I gotta, even though I'm moving, I still have to use the same damn company. But I am hoping that once I get moved in there and I use this business class internet of theirs, I'm hoping that will solve the problems. But anyway, that's that. Okay, let's get back into the questions, shall we? But hey, I appreciate you throwing in your 2 cents there, SpeedNet. I appreciate you giving it away. But believe me, I have covered all those bases. I've covered all the bases multiple times. All right, but thanks for writing that in, man. Next up. Jaron Morris writes, what if Vision is dead? And what if Quicksilver comes back? And what if Wanda has kids? Is it a good idea to wake or get Wanda out of whatever is going on? Because waking her, you're going to take the happiness she has had away and she's already a little traumatized. You know what? I think it was The Atlantic. There's a publication called The Atlantic, and they have a terrific headline that really does sum up the status of what WandaVision is. And their headline was basically this. And seriously, think about this. WandaVision is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's the way they described it is a tragic, sad story of one woman desperately trying to deal with her grief. Think about that. In the midst of all this 50s sitcom, how you doing, neighbor? And all the smiles and the lovey-dovey between her and Vision. WandaVision is ultimately a terrible tragedy story of a woman who's desperately trying to deal with her grief. And it constructs this entire world. It's a beautiful assessment of it. But you know, let's see what happens once we get a little deeper. We're still only at the beginning of WandaVision. Let's get a little deeper. But I love that the way they talked about that and the way they looked at it. It really is this tragic story of a woman desperately trying to deal with her unimaginable grief. That's powerful. Doesn't it give you like chills a little bit? I personally think that's pretty powerful. Anyway, thanks for that, Jaron. Next up, some dude writes, could somebody please tell me how Whiplash ran under Best Adapted Screenplay and Boogie Nights got nominated for Best Original? Both were based on a short film the director did first before being adapted to feature length. I couldn't get into that discussion. I honestly can't remember much about, I remember the movie Boogie Nights, Bring on the Filthy, but I can't remember the specific details. But listen, the Writers Guild has specific rules about what kind of qualifies as what, whether something's adapted or something's original. There are specific rules and guidelines. And I honestly, some dude, it's a great question. I haven't gone into it. I'll say I will look into that though, into that situation with that and see where and how that plays out. It's an interesting question. I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but I don't, to be honest with you. So I'll need to go in and look into that. Thanks for that great question. You guys in the live chat, if you guys have some insight into that, or if you're watching this after the fact, jump into the comments section and address what some dude is talking about here. I think it's a great question. All right, next up, Ryan Lohner writes, Rewatching WandaVision, I'm now pretty sure that Stark Toaster with its blinking red light is supposed to be the missile. That's a common theory right now. Many people have that theory. That destroyed Wanda's house. We'll have to see if the other commercials keep to that theme. Well, I mean, and by the way, Kingston sends in a super chat live badge in the live stream. Thank you for that, Kingston. Listen, we already talked about, like, in episode 2, the commercial was Strucker, right? And Strucker is, of course, the Hydra dude that experimented on her and her brother in the first place. So there's this prevailing idea that these commercials represent trauma in her life. The Stark technology with the blinking red light, Strucker being in there as well. And then, of course, there is a commercial in episode 3, but I will not tell you about it yet. So I'll let you guys see that for yourself. So yeah, that is a common theme. And by the way, we said this on the spoiler discussion, but I believe the two people in those commercials, because remember, you notice it's the same two people. I believe those are her parents. I don't know that for sure, but I believe that those two people in those commercials are actually Wanda and Pietro's parents. So we'll see if that's true. All right. Where do we go? Ethan Holgate writes, "Hey, John, I was thinking the other day, with Hellboy reboot being a flop, real flop, and not setting out what they hope to do with the new franchise, is there a chance Guillermo del Toro would still be interested in doing a third movie? I know he wants a huge budget, and studio said no, but would it be possible Netflix or Apple TV would put up the money for it to get made in the future? Obviously, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since the second movie. I was just thinking that the other day, but I doubt Guillermo would do it now. No one's going to put up, and by the way, Evelyn sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Evelyn. No, see, that was the big problem. Hellboy's numbers were never good. I mean, that's just the reality. Hellboy's box office. Let me go and see if I can find this. Hellboy box office. I mean, the original Hellboy that was done by Guillermo del Toro. It made, let me see if I can find the run, because I don't want the 2019 one. The 2019 one was an unbelievable flop. Like, if I'm not mistaken, it made like $55 million or something along those lines. 55 million. Yeah, that one made 55 million. That one made 55 million. The other one, the first one that Guillermo del Toro did, I also didn't do well. And then, like, Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, I think made even less. I think Hellboy 2, The Golden Army made even less than that. So, I mean, it's not something, and so understanding that these movies never made a lot of money, it makes it very difficult. I'm out of soda. It makes it very difficult for any studio. Yeah, the first Hellboy movie made under $100 million worldwide. Worldwide made under $100 million. With those types of numbers, it becomes very, very difficult to justify. Guillermo del Toro says he wants $200 million to make another one. Minimum. That number's probably gone up, and there's just no reason to believe that it would have any kind of success. So anywhere, there's that. All right, guys, listen. I am out of soda, so if you will give me a moment, I'm going to take a quick break, run downstairs, use the bathroom quick, refill my soda, and then we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, and we are back. I just I started off by running to go and get refilling my drink, and then when I got back, I realized, we were just talking about my internet service provider. Yeah, dropping down. My upload speeds while I was gone dropped down to 1 or 2 megabits per second, which is not strong, but we gave it a couple of minutes, and it seems to be back now, so let's keep on trucking along, shall we? All right, our next question. I think that was, yes, it was Ethan that asked that last one, so let's move on now to the next one. Dark Knight Rises writes, "Hi, John. Today, Monday, as I send this in," so that would have been yesterday, I believe, or would that, yeah, that was yesterday. What day is today? I forget. Is today Monday or Tuesday? I can't remember. Today's Wednesday. Oh, so you sent this in on Monday. Okay. Hi, John. Today, Monday, as I send this in, Kevin Costner turned 66, wanted to send out a happy birthday. I think he is great. I love Kevin Costner. I think Kevin Costner's great. I really do. I loved him in Dances with Wolves. I loved him in, I loved him as Pa Kent. I just love the dude. Now, I hear that show of his Yellowstone is supposed to be really good. And I'm going to have to go and check that out because everybody says that show's really great. I've seen commercials for it a few times. I think it looks great. I'm going to have to figure out some way to go watch it because I personally think Costner is wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Dark Knight Rises. All right, next up. Simon Godleski writes, "John, it appears that we have another look at Matt Reeves' Riddler on a Mountain Dew bottle of all things. Have you seen the picture and what are your thoughts?" I have not seen the picture. Hold a second. Riddler Mountain Dew bottle. Let me see if I can find this. I'm not seeing anything right now. Let me just set to this past week. Mountain Dew. Oh, yeah. Okay. I had not seen this before. The Riddler's Brew. It's called Mountain Dew Riddler's Brew. I'm not able to bring up a picture right now for you guys to see, but Mountain Dew Riddler's Brew looks kind of interesting. Okay. Okay. I'm down. Why not? I mean, it doesn't really show much. You see a little bit of the face and the eyes. It doesn't give away too much, but that's interesting that they're already kind of rolling out the merchandising promoing, that's already coming out. That's interesting. I'll have to get one of those bottles. It might become a collector's edition at some point. Thanks for sharing that, Simon. I had not heard of that before. All right, next up. Double Crit writes, journos / pundits like you got 3 episodes of WandaVision. Normies like me only got 2. Do you think this is some kind of experiment by Disney to see if reviewers spoil episode 3 for their audience? So far, I haven't seen anybody blatantly spoil episode 3. No, this is not a test to see if, no, listen, remember they got episodes 1 and 2 days before everybody else got episode 1s and 2, right? So they're not worried about things being spoiled. I think here's the thing. And I think you'll understand this a little bit more once you see episode 3. Episode 3, you can kind of feel the change in the show coming. And again, I don't want to give any more details than that. You can kind of feel it a little bit more tangibly. And I feel like Disney thought, the first reviews need to have that bigger understanding or a little bit of a bigger picture of what this show is to give an opinion on how this show starts. And I honestly think that's why they gave us the first 3 episodes. I don't think it was because let's test and see because we could have spoiled the first 2 episodes before the show came out. So no, I don't think that was them testing to see if people will spoil things. No, I don't think that's the case at all. All right, next up, and I cannot wait for you, Double Crit, to watch episode 3. I'm very curious to see what people think about episode 3. All right, Dragonborn Druid writes, 1 of 2. I watched 4 Sidney Poitier 93 films yesterday, thanks to CCM. As a 90s kid, I only saw Heat of the Night and To Sir With Love, but thought he was a great actor. Can't believe his probably 3 biggest films came out in 1967. Well, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is like, seriously, let me hold a second. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. All right, so his film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which, like you were pointing out, 1967, is one of those 3 that came out. Listen to this cast. Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, Bay Richards, Roy Glenn, and of course, Sidney Poitier. That was a movie that was so ridiculously far ahead of its time. Like today, you got to understand, like we forget. We are so bad at forgetting the past and our past. Today, the idea of a white girl coming home and bringing her black fiance to meet her parents when her parents never knew her boyfriend or fiance was black. I mean, today there's I guess a little bit of I wonder how that will turn out. But in 1967, like, I don't think before most of us were born, I just think a lot of us don't really grasp how on the edge that was. And Terrence Fisher is reminding us that, yes, Bernie Mac and the dude from that's Ashton Kutcher, I think they did kind of a different take on that called Guess Who, which is kind of a play on Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. But instead, it was a black girl bringing home her white boyfriend. At any rate, that movie was terrible. But Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, coming out in 1967, was, I can only imagine the tremors that sent through a lot of pop culture. And it's a great movie. It's a great movie, but seriously, like, you think today that would have been maybe a little controversial today, maybe a little, I don't know. I think for the most part, that assholishness of us is kind of behind us, at least for the most part, I would hope. But in 1967, totally different thing. And I don't think most of us, including me, who weren't there, can truly grasp what a seismic disturbance that created at the time. Just amazing stuff. Anyway, that was only the first part of it. Anyway, Dragonborn goes on to write, best to worst. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which I was just talking about, of course. Patch of Blue, Lilies in the Field, Warm December. Love Patch of Blue performance most, but his monologue in Coming to Dinner to his father just got me. Love the pacing of that movie and the one-on-one conversations. Again, and seriously, when you look at Spencer Tracy and Hepburn, right down the list, it's the performances that made you just buy into it. And Sidney Poitier was amazing in that. And it's really, I still remember the Academy Awards where they gave Sidney Poitier won the honorary Oscar that year. And it was the same year that Halle Berry won Best Actress for Monster, I believe that was, or was it Monsters Ball? That she won Best Actress for Monsters Ball, and Denzel Washington won for, I believe it was Training Day. And so there's this really incredible picture of Halle Berry, Denzel Washington, Sidney Poitier, all up on the stage at the same time. It was a powerful Oscars. It was a powerful Oscars. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Dragonborn, and good on you for getting caught up on your classics, man. Good on you. All right, next up. James writes, hi, John. Do you prefer a multimedia canon such as Star Wars, includes movies, live action series, animated series, novels, and comics, or a single media canon like the MCU, movies, now Disney Plus series, are different from comics, which are different from animated? It's a question that we've never had to deal with before, right? We've never had to deal with that question before, but now we live in an era where we have cinematic universes that span different mediums, I should say. Listen, when Disney took over Star Wars and they announced this big grand plan that they were going to include books, comics, everything, the movies, everything is canon. I remember at the time saying, that sounds nice and all, but you're never going to be able to make it stick. I mean, that sounds good, and good on you. Bravo. That's what you're going to try to do. Fantastic. You're never going to be able to make it stick. You're never going to be able to make it stick. And sure enough, because it just becomes too complex, too convoluted to try to keep everything in complete consistency with everything else going on around the universe, without taking away some of the creativity of your individual storytellers. Well, John, that's why they have the story group. Yep. Well, their story group hasn't done a very good job. Because it didn't take long before we started to see cracks in that canon. And now we see Star Wars contradicting itself. Even The Mandalorian this year contradicted a number of things that are in other canon things, right? And it's just, so, listen, to this point, I don't even consider anything in Star Wars canon except the movies and Mandalorian. Those are the only things I consider canon right now. Really. But again, canon almost doesn't mean anything anymore. It's too bad. It used to mean a lot. So I prefer single medium, but there are advantages to multi-medium as well. It's just that they also present themselves with a lot of problems, as we've seen happening in Star Wars. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts. All right. Thanks for writing that in, James. Next up, Gabriel Reed writes, 1 of 3. Hey, John. My passion has been movies and filmmaking. Good passion to have. I've wrote into the show about me going to film school. I enrolled and done 3 years before unfortunately getting cut short due to COVID last month. Oh, dude, that sucks. I had to quit school to work full time to provide for my kids. I'm 27. Well, that's what a responsible man does. Good on you. I was so bummed out I couldn't finish my degree and pursue a career in filmmaking. Well, John, I can't say much, but what I can say is I've been tapped to write the script for an animated series based on an old Cherokee Indian tale. The Indian tribe in North Carolina is funding the project, if approved, and will have a production budget of $1.8 million. That's a healthy budget, man. I heard some good news today, but here's hoping. Thank you, and I'll keep you updated. Cheers. Good. Well, first of all, Gabriel, that's great. First of all, it's great that you're following your passion. Number 2, it's great that when things get tough, you did what a man does and you take care of your priorities. Good on you for that. But you did so while also keeping an eye on your passion at the same time. It sounds to me like you navigated this whole thing perfectly. It sounds like seriously, it sounds like your approach to this, you navigated it perfectly, and it sounds like it might just pay off. And that's exciting, man. That's exciting. That's really good stuff. And again, it's also exciting to me because, there's this romantic adage in our culture about the number one thing in life should be pursuing your dreams. That's the number one thing in life. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I say a man because I am a man and therefore I can only speak from my perspective of being a guy. So I'm not trying to exclude anything else. I'm just saying from my own perspective of being a guy, I can only speak from my own perspective. So don't take me as excluding anybody else. But no, chasing your dreams is not the number one thing in your life. Not if you're a real man. If you're a real man, the number one thing in your life is meeting your responsibilities. That's the number one thing in your life. is prioritizing the responsibilities you have in your life. And if you have a family and you have kids, guess what? I don't care if you have a fucking dream about being a full-time Twitch streamer, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di, or a full-time fart farming YouTuber like me. Doesn't matter. The number one thing, if you're a man, is to meet your responsibilities. And it sounded like you did that. It sounded like you were doing the one great thing of pursuing your goals, but you allowed yourself to get sidetracked from theirs for meeting your responsibilities as a man. And I admire that. Good on you. And yet you've kept half an eye on those dreams and goals too for when things get better. And it sounds like opportunity is availing itself to you. And I think that is awesome. Well done. And I couldn't be happier for you, Gabriel. So do let me know at some point how that turns out. That's seriously. I mean, by Hollywood standards, obviously 1.8 million doesn't even cover the lunch budget. But for a lot of small indie projects, 1.8 million is a good budget. That's a nice budget. So I hope the best for you, Gabriel, and please do let me know how that all turns out. All right, next up, Murray Reich writes, 1 of 4. I finally finished watching the Clone Wars series. I personally watched the first few episodes, and it wasn't interesting at all. So I stopped watching for a couple of weeks. Then my friends got me back into it, and it was a slow burn. By the time I got into season 5, when Maul shows up, that's when the series got better. The revival season 7 that came out recently is the best one out of the whole series. It literally felt more like a 5-hour Star Wars movie. The last 4 episodes, though, were the best. The Battle of Mandalore, especially the Inevitable Order 66, gave me a different perspective of other characters like Ahsoka and Rex and how they survived. Darth Maul, though, in those episodes, was badass, ripping fools one by one. Overall, the series is not great, but it has its moments, especially in the last few seasons. What I took away from the series was how close Anakin and Ahsoka, the father-like-son relationship, master and apprentice. I hope the Ahsoka series finds a way to help her see Anakin again as a Force ghost so they can have a special moment. Yeah, listen, everybody who watches my show on a regular basis knows that I'm not a big fan of Clone Wars. I much prefer Dave Filoni's other series, Rebels. I was very hesitant about Rebels because, again, I wasn't a big fan of Clone Wars, but I really do quite enjoy Rebels. Rebels was quite good. But Clone Wars, even to somebody like me that didn't really like Clone Wars, certainly does have its moments. It certainly does. The final season, I think overall is a bad season, but the last couple of episodes of the final season, I mean, that's all anybody talks about, right? Like when you talk to people about the final season they put out on Disney Plus, was season 7, I think it is. You know, no one ever talks about the Bad Batch. Nobody talks about the Bad. Whenever you bring up the final season that they put out on Disney Plus, everybody talks about the last couple of episodes. Everybody just talks about the last couple of episodes. That's it. Because everybody kind of acknowledges the first bunch were really not that good. The first bunch of episodes that season were not all that good. But yeah, and listen, again, even somebody like me who I didn't like the series overall, and I think Rebels is a much better, much more Star Wars kind of show than Rebels was, or than Clone Wars was. I think Rebels is significantly better, but even I think there were certainly moments. And there were certain seasons that were better than others and certain moments that were better than others. So, I mean, I don't think Clone Wars completely sucks. Don't get me wrong. And remember earlier in the show today, we were talking about how, hey, listen, sometimes all of us have certain things we like more than most other people do. This is one of those situations where amongst my fellow Star Wars fans, I'm in a bit of the minority. I think most Star Wars fans really do like Clone Wars, and that's great. Didn't work nearly as well for me. I prefer Rebels. All the same people making them, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, that final season that they put out there, I remember I sat down to watch the final season. I'm like a couple episodes in, I'm like, this is terrible. That whole Bad Batch thing, it just sucks. I can't believe they're making a series out of it. But you're right. Once they start shifting focus, it does get significantly better in the last couple of episodes. And the last couple of episodes are pretty good. Pretty epic stuff, actually. I got to give it that. All right, next up. Kara Black writes, this past weekend, 1 of 2, for the first time in years, I rewatched The Terminator and the extended edition of T2 Judgment Day. Those are 2 great movies to watch back to back. They are outstanding classics that I adore even more now. One question though, Why did they feel the need to make more of them when T2 had a pretty definitive / perfect ending, like Return of the Jedi and The Last Crusade, of Sarah and John Connor saving the future by destroying all the resources that would have been used to create Skynet? Because it was a successful franchise. Somebody had the idea for another movie. Terminator was a successful franchise. Terminator 2 was beloved. And they saw an opportunity to make another movie that hopefully people would like. Didn't work out so well. But here's the thing. You can make the same argument. I remember, not everybody remembers this, but, go back to, I think it's fair to say that certainly not everybody, but I think when you talk to most film fans about the Toy Story series, I think more people probably lean towards Toy Story 3 being the best of the bunch. Now, I haven't taken a poll, but I suspect if we did take a poll about what's your favorite of the Toy Story movies, I have a feeling Toy Story 3 would probably win. I haven't done that poll, so maybe I'm wrong, but I just have a feeling Toy Story 3 would probably win. It is, to me, the best of the Toy Story movies as well, is Toy Story 3. That said, when they announced that they were going to do a Toy Story 3, I still remember very much the reaction from a lot of the fan community. It was, why? Toy Story 2 was perfect. And Toy Story 2 had a perfect ending. Why make Toy Story 3? You're just going to ruin Toy Story. What's the point in doing Toy Story 3? The second one was perfect. It ended perfect. It's the two of the best, 1-2 combo films of all time. If they both had 100% ratings on Rotten Tomato, wrap your heads around that. 100% ratings. Everybody liked the first two. I mean, why? Why do 3? And guess what they did? Then they did 3, and that became what I suspect is most people's favorite Toy Story movie. Even though everybody screamed, why make another one? They did, and now it's a lot of people's favorite. And then the same thing happened again when they announced Toy Story 4. The exact same things. Why do 4? 3 was perfect. 3 had the perfect ending. Just the exact same things everybody said about the ending of Toy Story 2. And while Toy Story 4 is not the best Toy Story movie, Toy Story 4 is a really good movie. That end, there was a lot of wet eyes in the movie theater I saw Toy Story 4 in. When the ending of Toy Story 4 happens, there was a lot of emotion in that theater. Again, I don't think it's as good as 3. I don't think it's as good as 2, but it's a really good movie. So they kind of had that same philosophy, even though it came first, of Terminator. Yeah, Terminator 2 ended great, but it was a great movie. People love Terminator. If we can come up with an idea to make another one and people want to come out and see it, let's do it. It just didn't work out. But therein lies, Kara, a great example of what we're always saying here. Winning cures everything. Going into Toy Story 3, everybody was, why make this? You're just going to ruin Toy Story. Toy Story 2 is the perfect ending. But what happened? It was amazing. Got nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Only 3 animated films in history have been nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Toy Story 3 was one of those, and it won, and so nobody talks about it anymore. Nobody talks about the fact that they didn't need to make Toy Story 3. Nobody talks about that. Winning cures everything, but losing exasperates problems. And so what happened? Terminator 3 comes out and it was nowhere near as good as Terminator 2. And they've never made anything as good as Terminator 2 since. And so we asked those questions. But yeah, it was real simple, Kara. They saw an opportunity. And again, we had another jump in the thing here. Let me get back to it. They saw an opportunity to make something they thought people would like, and it didn't work. Just kind of simple as that. And in hindsight, maybe they never should have done that. All right, next up. Warner Brother writes, I guess, get it? Warner Brothers? Get it? Warner Brother? Anyway, tips in $20. Thank you so much, Warner Brother, for supporting the channel on that level, man. I've never been the biggest fan of Zack Snyder, but strongly believe he deserves a chance to finish Justice League. No, he doesn't. And I'll explain why in a second. Love what he's done for suicide prevention. Yeah, that stuff was really great. I'm excited. Justice League will be a 1 4-hour film after all. Your thoughts? Will you do a spoiler discussion, please? I doubt I'll do a spoiler discussion. I don't have a lot of interest. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't have a lot of interest in doing a spoiler discussion of a movie that's a redux of one we've already seen. I am very much interested in watching this. But let me go back to the first comment. Nobody owes any filmmaker anything. It's not just Zack Snyder. Nobody owes any filmmaker anything. All right. Zack Snyder is not owed a studio stepping up and putting up $70 million to let him do a personal project to finish off. Nobody owes Steven Spielberg $150 million to go and do a movie he wants to do. Nobody owes him that. Nobody owns Marty Scorsese $200 million. Apple did not owe Marty Scorsese, but he's Marty Scorsese. Yeah, he's Marty Scorsese, but nobody owes him to say, take $200 million of their own money and say, here, Marty, you go make your movie. Zack Snyder, Steven Spielberg, Marty Scorsese, they're owed nothing. All right. Nobody owed him shit. The only thing actors, directors, producer, whatever are owed is the paycheck they got for doing the work they did. That's what they're owed. Other than that, they ain't owed crap. They're not owed anything. No actor, no director, no whatever. What writers, directors, actors, producers, whatever, what they are owed is the paycheck they agreed on for the work that they did. Zack Snyder got paid. Steven Spielberg gets paid. Marty Scorsese gets paid. Quentin Tarantino gets paid. But yeah, this whole thing about a certain actor is owed this. No, they're not. A certain director is owed this. No, they're not. Not even Spielberg. You're owed a paycheck. That's what you're owed. And whatever royalties you are entitled to, that's what you're owed. So no, I do not believe for a second that Zack Snyder deserved, because saying deserved implies that he is owed. I don't believe that at all. I think it's really great for him that he was able to do it and all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful. But I don't believe any actor, producer, director deserves anything. But that's just me. Anyway. It's like I don't believe any YouTuber deserves anything. I don't believe I am owed anything. But whatever. As far as the recent stuff about it being, because remember, Warner Brothers had said it was going to be a 4-part miniseries, a 4-hour long 4-part miniseries. Now they're saying it's going to be a 4-hour movie, or at least Zack Snyder's saying that. I haven't heard Warner Brothers confirm that yet, but whatever. That's irrelevant right now. The smart thing to do is to do it as a 4-part miniseries. That's the smart thing to do. Because if it's good, then like Mandalorian, an episode comes out, and if it's good, everybody will talk about it, buzz about it, tell their friends. You got to get caught up and watch the next episode. And then the next week comes out, they play the next part of it. And again, everybody talks about it, buzzes about it, spreads the word around, gets people to go back and get caught up with the first two. And then the third episode comes out. And then again, everybody talks about it, buzzes about it. This is, of course, if it's good. And then the momentum and the hype starts to rise. People go back to get caught up on the first 3 so they can be there to watch the final conclusion. And then you put out the 4th one. And now you've built this big, consistent, instead of a one-day eruption of hype and excitement, you get a month of hype and excitement, of word spreading, and joyous fan enthusiasm and all that kind of stuff. For a streaming platform, it is absolutely the smarter thing is to go with 4 1-hour episodes week after week. It's just the smarter play. It is just the smarter play. For people like me that are bingers, there is an advantage for people like me to just sit down and watch it all in one session. And there's no doubt that's going to be, if it's good, that's going to be a good experience, is to sit down and just watch it all in one session. But again, if you're HBO Max, if you want to get the most benefit out of this investment, again, this is if it's good, then you should spread it out week over week, and you should do it as a 4-part series. You'll get a lot more benefit. A lot more benefit. Does them doing it, just putting it out in one, maybe suggest that they don't have a lot of faith in it? Maybe. Maybe they don't believe it's good enough that a week after week after week release will build energy. Maybe they're afraid that people aren't going to like it and it's going to get negative buzz and negative word of mouth, and interest in it will decline. Or maybe they feel like the one pop thing will give them the most bang for their buck. I mean, I don't know. So really, the only feeling I have is that if this HBO Max version of Justice League is good, then they've made a mistake by not putting out week after week, because I just believe they'll get a lot more benefit. Listen, the numbers prove it. We've seen it proved out many, many, many times. They would get far more benefit if it's good. So let's assume that it's good. If it's good, they will get a lot more benefit by having it, as a 4-part series. But I don't know. I mean, either way, whatever. At the end of the day, everybody's going to watch it and then we'll have our opinions about it. But I think it's a missed opportunity for them to capitalize on building momentum and hype in a week by week release. The kind that, that shows like Breaking Bad did, the shows like Game of Thrones did, the shows like Mandalorian did. Every week, the hype would just bigger and bigger and bigger, and more and more and more people would tune in and jump on the Mandalorian train. And I think if it's good, this HBO Justice League has a chance to do the same thing. So, but I don't know. Again, I'm saying all this as somebody who hasn't seen it. So maybe once we watch it, if it is one 4-hour movie, and again, I haven't heard Warner Brothers confirm that, but if it is one movie, once we watch it, maybe we'll go, okay, now that we've seen it, we understand it worked better as one 4-hour sitting. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. We will have to wait and see. All right. Thanks for that, Warner brother. Next up, John Honeyfoot Massage, again, a reference to something I said in another show, writes, "Hey, John, ever heard of The Last Kingdom on Netflix? Yes. I had a medieval itch to scratch and binged all 4 seasons in about a week. Wasn't bad at all, despite not having the budget of a Thrones or a Witcher. Probably more Vikings level. Ever seen it?" Let me just make sure it's the one I'm thinking about. Right. No, I never did watch it. So there's a lot of shows out right now with the word kingdom in it, right? So you've got Kingdom, the Korean medieval zombie show, which is great, by the way. If you guys haven't seen Kingdom, you should check out Kingdom. It's a lot of fun. Then there's Kingdom with Frank Grillo and one of the Jonas Brothers, the MMA family show. I've watched the first season. I didn't love it. I liked it. I mean, it was okay for the most part, but I no pun intended, I tapped out after the end of the season 1. I just tapped out. It just wasn't for me. And then we have The Last Kingdom, but no, this one I have not seen, but I've heard a few people mention, so I'll have to keep my eye on that one as well. All right, next, let's move on here. Next up, Jordan Lobo writes, "I tried watching Rise of Skywalker for a second time the other day, and 30 minutes in, I stopped and watched your spoiler discussion and Angry Joe's reaction video instead. Both his and your videos are way more entertaining. At least I tried rewatching Oh Well." Yeah, and listen, it's Star Wars. I gave it multiple shots. I watched it 3 times. I watched it 3 times in theaters. I went to the premiere, and then the next day I went to a press screening. And then I went to go watch it opening day with friends because we had already bought our tickets for opening day. So we went to opening day with friends. I saw it 3 times in theater. It just got worse every time I saw it. Just got worse every time I saw it. And yeah, I did like a full 3-hour video, a full 30-minute video, I should say, editorial, just kind of breaking down why that movie drove me crazy. See, it's weird because here you have these 2 Star Wars movies, right? The first in the new trilogy and the last in the new trilogy. You got The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. And The Force Awakens was such a different experience for me because I loved it the first time I saw it. Well, no, you know what? I don't even know if I loved it the first time. I really liked it a lot the first time I saw it. But then the more I watched it, the more I liked it. Every time I watched it again, I found new things to appreciate. And I love that first one. I love The Force Awakens. You juxtapose that against the third film in the trilogy, directed by the same guy who directed the first one that I love so much. And every time I watched it, it just got worse and worse. Now, granted, I only saw it 3 times, unlike The Force Awakens, which I probably saw like 15 plus times. But every time I watched The Force Awakens, it just got progressively a worse and worse experience. Culminating in me finally doing this big editorial video, kind of coalescing all my thoughts into, why the film didn't work. And it's just, and again, it highlights making movies is tricky and it's hard. Like, first film of the franchise, I thought was fantastic. Third film of the franchise, directed by the same guy, I thought was utterly terrible. It's just, it's a great example of how fickle movie making is and how truly difficult it is to make something that's consistently good. It's not easy. It's not easy. All right. Thanks for that, Jordan. Next up, where are we at? Jordan Lobo also writes, sports talk incoming. I have Rodgers winning the Super Bowl this year, but imagine if Brady takes out Breeze, which he did, Rodgers and Mahomes in the same year to win it all. Also, is Connor beating Dustin this Saturday? I don't think so. Dustin, McGregor has beaten Poirier before, but that was years ago. Poirier is a different fighter now, but at the same time, McGregor looked so dominant against Cowboy Cerrone. The only guy who truly, literally just beat him up was the best fighter on the planet, which is Khabib Nurmagomedov, the Eagle, the best combat sports fighter in the world. He's the only one to ever truly just beat up Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz, but that he wasn't dominated. He was dominated by the Eagle. But Poirier's a different fighter. It's going to be interesting. I think Poirier takes it. But I could be wrong about that. I think it's going to be a good close fight. Congrats on your new house and cheers, mate. All right, so Brady beat Breeze, which is great. By the way, do not count out the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs, even with Mahomes playing. This, Josh Allen is for real. Diggs is for real. That Buffalo defense is for real. I'm not saying you should favor Buffalo over Kansas City this weekend, but do not count out these Bills. These Bills are dynamic. They're aggressive. They play Pittsburgh Steel kind of mentality defense, very hard-nosed, very physical defense. And they are going to give Patrick Mahomes problems. They are absolutely going to give Patrick Mahomes problems. And I think Josh Allen is going to give Kansas City's defense some fits. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying put your money on Buffalo, but do not think it's a foregone conclusion that the Chiefs are going to beat the Bills. To me, it's a toss-up. It seriously is. It is an absolute toss-up, that game. I think Green Bay will handle the Buccaneers pretty easily. I just don't think it has nothing to do with Brady. I don't think Tampa Bay's defense, as good as they played in the New England game, I do not think they are going to be able to stop Aaron Rodgers this season. Aaron Rodgers is arguably playing the best football of his career right now. He is having an MVP year. That said, if it's a Kansas Green Bay Super Bowl, I think Mahomes beats him. I think Kansas City is a better matchup against Green Bay than Buffalo is. And Buffalo could beat KC. I'm just saying, when I look at them on paper, I think Kansas is a much better matchup against Green Bay. And I would actually put $5 on Kansas City beating Green Bay in the Super Bowl. Even though I think Buffalo could beat Kansas, it's just a matter of the matchup. It's just how they match up, right? And, they say in the UFC, it's styles make fights. And it's going to be a style thing. But man, if Brady can beat Breeze and then beat Green Bay, which I do not think is going to happen. I think Green Bay will beat Tampa Bay really in its first year together. And then say go into the Super Bowl and say beat Mahomes. It'll be one of the most legendary runs ever. One of the most legendary runs ever. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be pretty badass if it did. All right, next up. Some dude writes, let me get this straight. Andor is a prequel spin-off series. The Cassian Andor show is a prequel spin-off series to a prequel spin-off anthology film to episode 4, which is a film whose title implies 3 prequels, but none of those 3 prequels were Rogue One or Andor. All of the shows, this got greenlit. And I'll tell you why. Listen, I am somebody who, if you've watched me for any period of time, you know that I generally don't like prequel stuff. There are certainly exceptions. There are certainly some very, very good examples of things that have worked out well. But generally speaking, I would rather see stories move forward than move backwards. In the case of a Cassian Andor show, the reason I am intrigued by this show is because in Rogue One, we saw the dirtier side of the rebellion. Finally, an acknowledgement that you can't have a rebellious uprising against an evil empire without some blood being spilled and without some hands getting dirty. And we've never seen that side of it really in Star Wars. And in Rogue One, we started to get a glimpse of that side of it through the avatar of Cassian Andor. And so when they first started talking about doing a Cassian Andor show that explores that side of the rebellion, to me, that becomes very appealing. That becomes very appealing. To see that element of Star Wars, not a character, but an element of Star Wars that they've never really looked at before. The darker underside of what it is to try to mount a rebellion. And for those reasons, I'm cool. Now then you get some other shows like, say, they're doing stuff in the High Republic. We're talking about Acolyte as well. See, to me, I don't consider those prequels because they are separated by so much time. They're not really connected in all that much. Like once you go back more than 50 years, well, now you're kind of free to tell any kind of story that you want. You can kind of tell any story that you want if you go backwards far enough, which is why I've always been open. Even though I generally don't like prequels, I've loved the idea of them exploring the Old Republic era because it's separated by so much time. It's really its own thing. So then when you start looking at High Republic, when you start looking at the Acolyte, stuff like that, to me, that's actually very intriguing. But anyway, yeah, traditionally, a Cassian Andor show is one I would raise my eyebrow at. But because of the nature of the show, I have to admit, even I'm a little bit intrigued. So we'll see how they evolve with that, some dude. Good question, man. All right, Wakanda Forever writes, hi, John. Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar are the most successful MMA and wrestling crossover stars. Yeah, I guess that's fair to say. If you're talking about like TV professional wrestling, not like Olympic style wrestling. Although Brock Lesnar is like one of the most decorated wrestlers of all time too. Anyway, they both won championships in WWE. Do you think they will return to UFC in the next couple of years, or is it too late for a comeback? I think there was an opportunity for Brock to come back. Now, Brock is getting a little bit older. I know he's in his 40s. What is he, 42 now? 43. So Brock is now 43 years old. I think Brock could still come back for, not a heavyweight title match, but he could come back in and fight a mid-carder and you'd probably get paid big money and stuff like that. Ronda, I just don't see any point of Ronda coming back. Look, Ronda had the most dominant run as champion that we've had so far. Amanda Nunes might take that over, but as of right now, it's her. But then the sport caught up with her. Like, Ronda Rousey was so far ahead of everybody else. Like, she was so far ahead of everybody else in the sport, it was crazy. It was Ronda Rousey and then everybody else way down here. But what happened was eventually her setting the bar of excellence so high, it started to raise everybody else up. And the whole sport started to catch up to her. And eventually the sport passed her by. So we see her go in with the preacher's daughter in Holly Holmes and get her head kicked off. Like, literally, boom. That kick, man, that shin to chin was pretty damn sweet. And really Ronda, because the rest of the sport caught up. And then she tried to come back against Amanda Nunes, and then Amanda Nunes took her head off. And there were two very, very bad losses in a row. And I think Ronda Rousey, by the way, I was reading an article about her. Apparently she's like super intelligent. Like she did what a lot of athletes do, which is they blow their money when they get it. She took her money, saved it, invested it. Like she's pretty much set for the rest of her life, Ronda Rousey. So I don't think there's any motivation for her to come back. Brock Lesnar, on the other hand, I could see him come back and have some mid-card fights. He would be a big pay-per-view draw. It would make them a lot of money. But can Brock Lesnar step into the ring with a Francis Ngannou? No. Can he step in the ring with the champ, Stipe? No, he can't do that. But could he come out and fight someone like a number 15 guy in the world and put on a really good fight and maybe even win that fight? Yeah, I think he could do that, even at his age. So I would say there's maybe a 15% chance we see Brock Lesnar back at some point in the next maybe year or two. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure he probably would like to. All right, next up. Wakandan Forever also writes, if WandaVision does an animated episode, I want to see a Marvel Simpsons crossover, Vision versus Bartman. I have a total of 5 Baby Yoda figures in my house as we speak. There is no helping me. Everyone have a good week. Stay safe. Wakandan Forever. I mean, it's always kind of fun. You know what? I sat down and watched a full episode of The Simpsons last night. Ann and I were having dinner, and I don't know how this happened, but as I sat down, I came downstairs and yelled up, said dinner was ready. I came downstairs and The Simpsons was just on. I don't know how it came about, but it was the beginning of an episode of The Simpsons, and we just sat and watched the whole episode. You know, it's been years since I sat down and watched like a full episode of The Simpsons. I gotta say, I really liked it. I had a good time watching it. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Jordan Lobo writes, In WandaVision, I believe that someone wants Wanda to have kids for evil reasons. In episode 2, there was chanting about kids, and we haven't for the children, and we haven't seen any. If this is true, does this mean that she was somehow manipulated into making herself pregnant? I don't think so. I don't think her kids are reality. I don't think there's anything real about her kids. But we don't know that. We don't know that. But no, I don't think there's any kind of immaculate conception going on. I think this is all fantasy. I mean, there'll probably be elements of reality, but I particularly think her pregnancy is fantasy. I don't think it's real. But I don't know that. It very well could be. So we will have to see. We'll have to see. But listen, if it turns out that Jordan Lobo, I will think about your comment that you sent in there. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, man. All right. Carlos Eskimo writes, hello, John and Rob. Rob's not here today, obviously. I've been battling COVID for a month now. Dude, keep fighting it, dude. Now, but your show is one of the constants that keeps me going. When I was in the hospital for a week, your show was there for me too. John and Rob, you've helped me through horrible times. Much appreciated. Oh, dude, thanks so much for sharing that. And truly, it is an honor that the movie world and the movie fandom can be there to keep you company while you're doing it. And it sounds like you're on the uptick. You're no longer in the hospital. That's a good sign. So good to hear about that. And you know, it's funny today. I was watching the inauguration earlier today, and I know the number, but hearing the new president just say the number again, 400,000 Americans haven't made it. It's staggering. It's heart crushing. I believe they said that, you know, this year more people have died from this than all Americans that died, I think they said, in World War II. You take the total number of Americans that died in World War II, and it's great, and this is greater than that. I mean, it's staggering. So listen, man, whenever we get to hear a victory story, that's a good day. That's a good day. So thank you for sharing yours, and it's been our honor that we could be here, to be here for you and to hang out with you while you've been fighting it, man. So thanks for sharing your story, Carlos. I appreciate that. All right, next up, J Meister 25 writes, So I'm watching the Battle of Wakanda, and I picked up on something I never noticed before. Buried in the sound design of the film is this faint 1960s sitcom ditty that goes, WandaVision, what, WandaVision, WandaVision, what, WandaVision. Really? I don't know if you're joking or not. So I don't know. I don't know. Do you guys in the live chat know what J Meister's referring to? I must confess that I do not. I'm not quite sure what it is that we're referring to there. But if you guys know, please jump in and let me know, because I'm not familiar with that. All right, next up. See, Carlos Eskimo also writes in. Hi, John and Rob. Who's the most inconsistent director? Robert Rodriguez, Peter Berg, M. Night Shyamalan, Zack Snyder, Sam Raimi, F. Gary Gray. They all made both awesome and horrible movies. LOL. Or if you think some I didn't mention. Well, here's the reality. Every director has bad days at the office, no matter how good. No matter how good they are, every director has had a bad day at the office. Right? Spielberg, who I think is the greatest filmmaker of all time, has had a bad day at the office. Quentin Tarantino, who a lot of people consider one of the greatest filmmakers, has had bad days at the office. I'm looking at you, Death Car, or whatever the name of that one he did in Grindhouse was. That was terrible. And I love Quentin Tarantino. All of them have. Zack Snyder, to me, Zack Snyder's only ever made one bad movie, in my opinion. And that was Sucker Punch. Other than that, he's made a lot of good ones. M. Night, The Shamhammer, Death Proof. Thank you. I keep calling it Death Car. Death Proof. Thank you, Richard and Quirky Joe and Jimmy and the thing. Yes, I keep Death Car, Death Proof. Thank you. Terrible. Death Proof is terrible. Great car chase. Awesome, awesome car chase. Terrible, terrible movie, in my opinion. Anyway, but almost everything else he does is great. M. Night has had some fabulous cinematic victories and some spectacular defeats. F. Gary Gray has made some great stuff. I mean, recently with Straight Outta Compton and everything, right? And he's made some not so great stuff. But again, this is true of just about every director, right? And let's put it this way. I would rather be a director who has a mixed resume than a director who doesn't have any big wins on their resume. Like, I would rather be M. Night, who, granted, had The Happening and had Avatar: The Last Airbender, but also has Sixth Sense, you know, and a couple of others, like really good, wonderful, solid films, than somebody who's never had a big win, you know? So I don't know that having wins and losses, I don't think makes you an inconsistent director. Robert Rodriguez to me is pretty inconsistent. Because, you know, he'll make something great and then immediately make something terrible. And then he comes out and does that one episode of Mandalorian with Boba Fett. And I don't know. So he's hit and miss. But I mean, I think pretty much every one is. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head, there's two that I'm waiting for an L from. Christopher Nolan hasn't made a bad movie yet. There's some of his movies that I like less than others, but overall I like every movie he's made. And Denis Villeneuve. He's the only guy who hasn't made a really good movie so far. But it'll happen. It'll happen. You mark my words. It'll happen at some point. So it's tough. It's tough. Thanks for writing that in, Carlo. All right. I just got time for a couple more here, guys. Dean Dillon writes, "Hey, John, big fan. Thank you so much, Dean. I just wanted to ask, since we've gotten the Skywalker saga, Solo, and Rogue One, and getting Star Wars Squadron, what characters do you think Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie is going to be about? And yes, I know it's Star Wars." Sorry, this is part 2. Since they're doing Flashpoint in the Ezra Miller The Flash movie, do you think that after when Flash puts the timeline back to normal, Ben Affleck... Okay, so these are two separate questions. Okay, so let's deal with the one first. I have no idea what Taika Waititi is going to focus on. I have no idea. I suspect it's going to be something very different, though. And so I don't think it's going to be a movie that involves Luke or Han or Chewbacca or Lando or Jabba. I don't think it's going to involve any of them. I think it's going to be something completely different, either set sometime in the future or maybe even Old Republic era. I just got a feeling being Taika Waititi, it's going to be something completely different. I know nothing else. I know nothing else other than that I think and I feel it's going to be something really, really, really different. So I don't think it's going to be anything that we're already really familiar with. So that's my take on that. All right, next up. Donnie C. Mann writes, "Hey, John, have you heard the news that breakdancing is going to be an event?" Yeah, we talked about this a couple of months ago. That breakdancing is going to be an event at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Has the Canadian Olympic team contacted you yet? How confident are you to bring home the gold? Yeah, no. Listen, seriously, I was watching a couple of breakdancing videos of like contemporary modern breakdancers, right? And listen, I wasn't bad. And I was in a crew. That's what we called them back in the day, breakdancing crew. I was in a crew with a couple of guys who were fantastic. But I'm telling you right now, I was watching a video. I was watching some breakdancing videos yesterday on YouTube. There was this one, I think it was a Japanese crew versus this Russian crew at some big event. And they're all way better. It's kind of like professional sports too, right? Like you watch a different era. They are so much better. The breakdancers today are so much better than the breakdancers who were doing it back in the days of Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. I mean, they're just so much more advanced. It is crazy. And I'm like watching some of this. I'm going, how the hell do they do these things? It was crazy. It was absolutely, absolutely crazy. All right. Let's see. Next up is the next one from Dean Dillon, who writes, 2 of 2. Since they're doing Flashpoint in the Ezra Miller's The Flash movie, we don't know really how much of Flashpoint that we traditionally know from the animated movie or from the comic book they're actually going to bring in here. Remember, comics are comics. They use the same names all the time. They use Ultron, Civil War, Days of Future Past, but the movies end up being considerably different. So don't assume that we know too much. You're just putting that out there. Ezra Miller's The Flash movie. Do you think after, when Flash puts the timeline back to normal, and again, we don't know that that's going to be a part of it. You know, Civil War was nothing like the comic book Civil War. The comics run of Civil War. Days of Future Past was nothing like the comic story of Days of Future Past. So let's not assume anything. But when Flash puts the timeline back to normal, Ben Affleck's Batman will no longer exist and have Matt Reeves' Batman replace Affleck's in the DCU. No. They've already been very, very clear about that. Robert Pattinson's Batman is in a totally separate thing. Robert Pattinson's Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman, is a completely separate thing. And Walter Hamada recently came out and said, we're going to have 2 different Batmen running concurrently. One is going to be Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's Batman. That's in one universe. That's all their own. And then we're going to have a different Batman running around at the same time. So no. And not to mention that those 2 Batmen happen in different eras. They happen in different eras. Because I believe that the Batman that Robert Pattinson is in, that's like, I think the 80s or 90s or something like that, maybe 2000. It's a kind of a different era. So, yeah, so I think that kind of, so for whatever way we look at it, Dean, I don't think I don't think we're going to see that. And I'm very much looking forward to Matt Reeves' Batman. Very, very much looking forward to it. That trailer was terrific. All right. Last question of the day, guys, comes to us from Dr. Film, who writes, "Hey, John, are you doing okay? I hear you coughing more regularly when I watch these videos." No, I don't. I know you don't have corona, but you should get that looked at. No, I mean, there have been I know in the last couple of days, there have been 2 times where I'm like take a drink and like, something went down the wrong pipe. But no cough. No anything. So nope, I'm good. And Ann and I, every couple of weeks, we go and get the corona test. We just actually had our first one you could do yourself at home. We just got our first, because we've been going to like one of the centers and getting tested, but we just had the first ones where you can actually, it gets sent to you and you do your own test at home and then send it back and then they send you the results. But we do it every couple of weeks. We're good. So, no, I'm good. I'm good. All right. We'll do one more. Hopefully that is a little bit more on point here. All right. Meerkat writes, Hey, John. Like you, I didn't think we needed a Black Widow movie. However, having an actress with the caliber of Rachel Weisz is exciting. And if the script was bad, she wouldn't do it. Mummy 3. She has been in Lobster, The Constant Gardener. Thinks she is great. Oh, no, she's amazing. Rachel Weisz is an Academy level kind of actress. She's amazing. The whole cast is pretty good. I like David Harbour too, even though his Hellboy movie was awful. I like David Harbour, like playing her dad. Scarlett Johansson's terrific. Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Black Widow movie. I'm not super excited about it, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it turns out great. But yes, absolutely. Listen, the moment I heard that Rachel Weisz was going to be a part of it, I mean, that is a huge dose of credibility. To me, that just gives that movie a huge heaping dose of credibility because she is fantastic. And you're right. Hardly ever do you see her signing up for a movie that doesn't, at least in script form, look really good. She's been very, very careful about navigating. Not that she's never been in a bad film, but she has been very, very good navigating her career and what projects she does choose to be a part of and what she doesn't. And yeah, she's extraordinary. She's absolutely extraordinary. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right, guys, listen. For everybody else, there's still more to come. We got Alan Dale, Delayed Straw, and many others. Do not worry. I'm going to be doing a companion video. And by the way, guys, I'm going to let you know right now, there is not going to be a regular John Campea show tomorrow. I have to be our contractor who is working on the renovations of our house. Again, we move in 9 days. My contractor has requested that I come out to the house tomorrow. So I need to be at the new house tomorrow for the morning. So there's not going to be a regular John Campea show. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a companion video tonight, and then I will have the companion video premiere tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I'll try to be there in the chat board too with you guys. So you guys can still get together, talk in the live chat. We'll get through a lot of the questions. So that will premiere tomorrow at 10 a.m., a regular scheduled time for the John Campea show. And then we'll be back again on Friday for the show. All right, guys. That will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us involved here with the show, thank you very, very much for that. All right, guys, don't forget, do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.